Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At dawn, a farmer's dogs barked like war horns, uninvited SUVs lined the fence, and clipboard-wielding enforcers stormed his land. They claimed he was part of an HOA he never joined, but Walter Hale doesn't fold, and when they came for his farm, they triggered a fight they never saw coming. I woke up to Tank's bark, cutting through the quiet of the early morning like a chainsaw through soft pine. He's usually a low-energy type at dawn, more interested in stretching and sniffing the air than sounding the alarms. When Tank barks like that, it means something is wrong. Midnight joined in a half-second later, deeper, more controlled. That's the "we got company" bark. I rolled out of bed, shoved on my jeans, and grabbed my jacket on the way to the front door. The dogs were pressed against the screen, muscles tight, tails stiff. When I stepped outside, the chill hit me first. The yellow film of sunrise was just creeping over the hills, catching on metal. 4 black SUVs parked along my fence line, engines humming. On their sides, Cedar Ridge Preserve Homeowners Association. The letters were painted bold, the same aggressive navy color the HOA uses on their glossy mailers they keep slipping into my mailbox by accident. And then I saw them. 6 people in matching dark jackets with Enforcement Officer, Cedar Ridge HOA. Stamped on the backs like they were some kind of tactical unit. They had already pushed through my gate. Nobody knocked, nobody asked. They were walking around my yard like they owned the place, taking pictures of everything. My barns, the old tractors, even my dog's water trough. One guy crouched to photograph a pile of scrap metal near the workshop, muttering something about debris code. The ridiculousness of the whole scene hit me like a slap. These people really thought they were conducting a raid. Tank sprinted toward them, barking hard enough to shake every rib he had. I whistled sharply, and he stopped straight in front of the first officer, muscles locked, eyes fixed. Midnight took a flanking position near the barn door. They weren't attacking. They were guarding, just doing their job better than any security system money could buy. A woman broke off from the group. Blonde bob, pastel blazer, posture like someone whose greatest dream is to put a gold star next to her own name. She walked toward me with a clipboard hugged to her chest, like she thought it gave her power. "Good morning," she chirped, voice sweet like Splenda and twice as artificial. "I'm Karen Hopewell, president of the Cedar Ridge Preserve HOA. You must be Mr. Hale." "Walter," I corrected, "and this is my land." She didn't acknowledge the correction. Instead, she thrust a thick envelope toward me. "This is a formal violation notice. The fines total $9,400. Payment is due within 30 days. I stared at her. "For what exactly?" She began reading off the list like she was hosting a damn awards show. "Improper exterior storage of unapproved equipment, visual blight, unauthorized livestock presence, and..." She rolled this one out like it was the grand finale. "Failure to comply with HOA community standards." I blinked once. "I'm not in your HOA." Karen smiled like a cat who'd already eaten the canary and was working on the feathers. "Technically, your parcel is within the HOA's sphere of influence. We have initiated annexation procedures." She said sphere of influence the way imperialists say protectorate. "No," I said. "You don't have authority here. This farm has been private land since 1981 under federal deed transfer. You don't get to annex someone else's home like you're collecting monopoly properties." She tilted her head, pitying. "There's no need to be defensive. You'll find that our standards improve property values. Cooperation is much easier than resistance." Behind her, 2 of her officers pushed open the door of my equipment shed. One raised a camera. Midnight growled, low and steady. "That's enough," I said, stepping down the porch stairs. "Get off my land." Karen blinked, surprised that someone dared interrupt her performance. "Mr. Hale refusing to sign the compliance agreement will escalate your situation. I don't sign anything from strangers who break into my yard at 6 in the morning. You're refusing to comply? I'm refusing to pretend I belong to your cult." Her face hardened. "You're making this unnecessarily difficult. If you won't sign voluntarily, we will pursue enforcement through legal channels." I pointed toward the gate. "Leave." She didn't move. Instead, she raised her voice a notch. Officers continue documenting all violations. Tank barked sharply. Midnight growled again. "You should call your dogs," she snapped. "They're on my property." "You're not." That's when I finally noticed one of the guys reaching for the latch of the barn, my barn, like he had some kind of right to inspect it. That was enough. I lowered my voice, steady and flat. Either you walk out now or the sheriff gets to explain criminal trespass to you." Her composure cracked for the first time. The sheriff? Why would you involve? I stepped back toward the house. Because I already called him. That was a lie. At the time, but she didn't know that. And judging by the way her eyes twitched and her lips thinned into a paper-cut line, she absolutely believed it. She snapped her fingers. "Everyone back to the vehicles. We're not finished, Mr. Hale." Her voice dipped low, venom dressed up as civility. "You just made a very big mistake." They filed out, shoes crunching on the gravel. One officer glared at the dogs like they'd personally insulted him. I stood there barefoot on my morning cold porch, watching 4 SUVs pull away. Tank leaned against my leg. Midnight sat by my boot. The gate swung shut behind them, and the farm settled back into quiet. I'd seen coyotes, rattlesnakes, and 1 black bear on this land, but none of them ever acted like they owned it. Tank and Midnight stayed on alert long after the SUVs rolled out. They circled the gate area, sniffing the air, making sure the intruders didn't double back. I figured that was the end of it for the day. Maybe Karen and her merry band of clipboard commandos needed to regroup and draft more paper threats. I was wrong. Maybe 20 minutes later, the dogs started barking again. Short, explosive bursts. The kind that means movement inside the perimeter. I didn't even finish my coffee. I walked back outside, and damned if those people weren't back on my property. No SUVs this time. They'd parked farther down the road like they were staging a sting operation. 2 of them were already at the barn door, trying to slip inside. That door has a heavy latch. They weren't just pulling, they had a crowbar. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice cracked across the yard like a rifle shot. "You just broke the golden rule out here." The one with the crowbar glanced back over his shoulder. "We have the right to inspect unregistered structures." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You have the right to get off my land before the dogs escort you." Tank lunged before I even whistled, closing the space between us in a blur of muscle. He didn't bite, didn't snap. He planted himself between the man and the barn door, shoulders stiff, head low, like a black-furred boulder, daring them to try their luck. Midnight flanked the second guy, moving silent and predatory as a shadow. One of the officers jerked backward so fast he almost tripped. His hand flew up defensively. "Control your animals." "They're already controlled," I said. "You're just in the wrong place." Karen swept back onto the scene from behind the barn as if she'd been waiting for her dramatic cue. "Mr. Hale, this resistance is making you look unreasonable. If you cooperate, we can settle this without escalation." "You're breaking into a man's barn. We are performing a regulatory inspection. You're trespassing, and if I were one of those reality TV farmers, you'd be zip-tied to a fence post by now." She puffed up like a hostile pigeon. "You can't threaten HOA officials." "Oh, sweetheart," I said calmly. "If I threatened you, you'd need new pants." That's when she saw the shotgun in my hands. Now, before anyone starts imagining I was waving it around like some crazed hermit, no. My shotgun was pointed at the ground. Safety on. Finger away from the trigger. The most dangerous thing about me at that moment was how calm I was. Karen froze. "Is that firearm supposed to intimidate us?" "No," I said. "Your trespass is supposed to intimidate me. The shotgun is just so I don't have to raise my voice." The man with the crowbar swallowed hard. Midnight edged closer, silent, nose inches from the guy's wrist. He dropped the metal tool like it burned. That's when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. The sheriff's dispatcher was calling me back. I didn't even have to say a word, just turn the speaker on. The dispatcher's voice echoed across the yard. "Deputy Coleman is en route now. ETA 12 minutes. Karen stiffened. "You actually called the sheriff?" "I don't bluff," I said. She glared at me for a long moment, chest rising and falling with controlled rage. Then, through clenched teeth, "Officers, back to the vehicles." Tank and Midnight escorted them all the way to the gate. No barking, just pacing them, shoulder to knee like 2 hairy bouncers. Karen paused at the gate, leaned close to me and whispered, "You just signed your own eviction notice. We will have your land." I leaned in just as close. "You're not taking 1 inch of my dirt without a damn war." The convoy rolled out. Dust settled. Silence returned. Then a sheriff's cruiser came up my driveway, gravel crackling beneath the tires. Deputy Dan Coleman stepped out, broad-shouldered, late 40s, looks like the type of man who built his own deck and enjoyed it. "Morning, Walter," he called. I jerked my chin toward the gate. "You just missed a clown parade." He sighed the sigh of a man who deals with HOA drama more than DUIs. Let me guess. Karen Hopewell. Bingo! Dan took notes. I handed him the envelope of fines, explained the attempted break-in. He photographed the crowbar still lying on the ground. They entered without permission, he asked. Came in twice, I answered. First time to recite their commandments. Second time to try and break into my barn. He scratched his jaw. You have cameras? Front porch, barn, and gate. Good. Keep the footage. Don't erase anything. He looked me straight in the eye. If they step foot past that gate again without your say-so, call me. That's criminal trespass. And if they try to break into anything, burglary with intent. A slow grin pulled at my mouth. You think Karen understands the word criminal? Dan chuckled. Karen understands jail. She just doesn't believe it applies to her. He finished his notes, snapped the notebook shut, and tipped his hat. Stay reachable. Something tells me this is only round one. He wasn't wrong. If this was round one, round two was going to hit harder. 3 days passed without a peep. No SUVs, no envelope in the mailbox. Not even a snide email from the Community Harmony Task Force that usually sends HOA newsletters titled things like, Together, We're Tidy. It was the kind of quiet that makes an old farmer suspicious. My land's never silent without a reason. On the morning of the fourth day, I got mail from the Red Cedar County Land Use Department. Now, I don't normally open government mail standing in my driveway, but something about the envelope made my hands itch. Inside was a single-page letter, stamped, signed, and too polite to be good news. Mr. Hale, we are notifying you that your parcel is now included in the jurisdictional boundaries of Cedar Ridge Preserve HOA as per Map Revision Ordinance 74A. Your property is now subject to local HOA standards, pending confirmation of full community integration. My vision tunneled. The words swam like flies on shit. Map revision. I damn near marched back inside barefoot. The next morning, I was at the county assessor's office before the coffee machine even finished brewing. I wasn't asking, I was demanding answers. The clerk, a tired-looking man in a polo shirt who probably didn't sign up for this level of heat before 8 a.m., told me I had to wait for the zoning supervisor. When she finally arrived, Ms. Jerica Bell, 40-something, sharp eyes, tired of everyone. She walked me back to her office and opened up the digital overlay map on her monitor. There it was. A bright red line snaking through the map, swallowing up my land, turning it into HOA territory like some kind of cartoon villain. Who submitted this? I asked, keeping my voice even. Cedar Ridge Preserve HOA, she replied, with attached survey documentation and notarized map revisions, signed by a licensed civil engineer, Theodore Sloan. I almost laughed. Ted Sloan retired 2 years ago. He now sells homemade apple wine at the Saturday market and couldn't survey his own damn driveway if you spotted him the measuring tape. She blinked. You're certain? I leaned in. Ma'am, I've known Ted since high school. He officiated my cousin's wedding in a John Deere t-shirt. You want his number? She nodded, and I dialed right there at her desk. Ted answered on the second ring, voice still gravelly from 20 years of chewing skull. Hey, Ted, you sign anything for Cedar Ridge lately? Pause. Hell no, he barked. They tried to get me to consult on something shady last fall. Told him to pound sand. Why? I turned on speakerphone. You're about to get famous. Jerica looked like someone had just spilled moonshine on her legal pad. She pulled the file off the desk and flipped through the hard copy of the submission. I watched her face tighten as she examined the signature, then the notary stamp. Her jaw twitched. This is bad, she said under her breath. No kidding, I muttered. She excused herself and came back 15 minutes later with her supervisor in tow. They took copies of Ted's old retirement paperwork, noted the call, and promised a formal fraud inquiry. They also flagged my parcel in the system pending investigation. On the way out, I saw a memo tacked to a corkboard near the exit. A flyer from Halston Development Group, big-time land developers, offering incentives to HOA communities to optimize parcel integration for cohesive expansion. Something about the logo tickled the back of my brain. I walked back to my truck, chewing on the word integration like a rotten walnut. When I got home, I poured a bourbon and pulled out a file folder that hadn't seen daylight in a decade. Back when Cedar Ridge Preserve was still a muddy idea in some planning commissioner's inbox. I dug out old maps, permits, development meeting notes from when they tried to buy part of my southern field back in '09. And there it was. Halston Development Group, same name, listed as the financial backer for the Cedar Ridge project. Same project Karen Hopewell now ran like a dictator in yoga pants. This wasn't about grass height or tractor rust. This was land acquisition by proxy. She wasn't finding me to fix anything. She was pressuring me to fold. Push me far enough, make it look like I'm in violation of rules I never agreed to, ruin the property value through bureaucracy, and then swoop in and offer to buy me out at a discount. Hell, maybe this had worked on someone else before. Someone with less fight in their spine and more debt on their back. But I wasn't someone. I was Walter Hale. And if Karen thought a fake map and some bureaucratic dance was going to make me bend, then she really hadn't done her homework. It wasn't even noon when the first drone flew over my property. I heard the soft buzzing and looked up from my morning fence repair to see a black quadcopter gliding over the barn like it was surveying an oil field. At first, I thought it was one of Karen's goons trying a new intimidation tactic, maybe filming evidence for their next batch of fabricated violations. I was about 2 seconds from grabbing my 12 gauge when a voice crackled from the driveway. "Please don't shoot my drone." I turned around and saw a young woman, jeans, flannel shirt tied around her waist, camera slung over one shoulder, and confidence radiating off her like heat off asphalt. Early 20s, messy ponytail, phone in one hand, tripod in the other. She waved. "Hi, I'm Lex. I messaged you on Facebook." I squinted. "I haven't logged into Facebook since Obama's second term." She grinned. "Well, someone replied from your page." "That was probably my cousin Clay. He thinks gifts count as diplomacy." She marched right up the gravel path like she'd been here before. "I run a channel, Land Rights Now. I talk about eminent domain abuse, HOA corruption, and stuff that usually gets buried in court records until it's too late." I stared at her. "You drove all the way out here to film my chickens?" Lex shook her head, suddenly serious. "No, Mr. Hale. I came because your case is textbook HOA overreach, wrapped in fraud and served with a side of illegal annexation. People need to hear this." I blinked. "You talk like a lawyer." "I watch a lot of Law and Order and have ADHD, she said cheerfully, setting up her tripod. "But seriously, this is happening all over the country. I've got viewers in Georgia, Arizona, Florida, all saying the same thing. HOAs pretending they have legal authority where they don't, threatening people into submission." "Submission," I echoed. "Funny word for it." Within 10 minutes, she had her mic clipped to my collar, her drone circling the property, and a full sit-down interview rolling on camera. I wasn't planning on saying much. I'm not big on public speaking, but something about her energy pulled it out of me. I told her everything. The morning raid, the fines, the fake map, Ted Sloan, even the way Karen smiled like she was trying out for Queen of Suburbia. She listened without interrupting, her camera rolling the whole time. Every time I paused, she'd throw in a follow-up like a prosecutor cross-examining a smug senator. When we finished, she stood up, checked the footage, and smiled like she'd just struck gold. "This is going to light up the internet." "I don't want internet fame," I muttered. "Don't worry," she said. "You'll be famous for being pissed off and right. That's the best kind." Lex uploaded the first clip that evening. It was only a minute long, just me standing by the barn saying, "I don't owe a damn dime to people who walked onto my land like they were storming Normandy with clipboards." She tagged it, "Hale versus HOA, land rights, get off my lawn." By morning, the video had over 2 million views. Lex came back the next day with backup batteries, a cooler of energy drinks, and a list of interview requests. She filmed a second video from my front porch explaining how HOA, spheres of influence, are legally meaningless outside their recorded covenants, and quoted actual case law like it was gossip. Then the messages started coming in. A woman in Arizona who'd been fined for painting her mailbox the wrong white. A guy in Florida whose HOA tried to seize his boat parked in his own backyard. A veteran in Kentucky who'd been pushed off his own 5-acre plot after a revised boundary vote he didn't know existed. Karen hadn't just poked a bear, she'd poked the whole damn woods. But it wasn't just Lex's videos. Something else broke wide open. A second case. A man named Raymond Trujillo reached out from a town about 40 miles away, said his land had been annexed by Cedar Ridge HOA 2 years ago. Said he'd been pressured into signing a compliance form after they threatened legal action over code violations. Said he regretted it ever since. Lex pounced on that story like a hawk on a field mouse. She dug into county filings, found discrepancies in Raymond's parcel integration, almost identical to mine. Fake inspections, backdated signatures, the same developer, Holston Group, listed in the HOA's expansion report. When Lex dropped the third video, side-by-side comparisons of my map and Raymond's, with a voiceover saying pattern, fraud, intent, the floodgates opened. By the end of the week, local media picked it up. The Red Cedar Gazette ran a front-page headline, Farm versus HOA. How far will they go for control? Karen responded the only way she knew how, by smiling through her teeth and giving a canned interview on Channel 8 News about standard enforcement and community beautification. I watched it over dinner. She was sitting in her staged living room with a fake potted orchid and enough hairspray to kill a bird mid-flight. When the anchor asked about Cedar Ridge's expansion practices, she replied, "We're simply enforcing agreed-upon standards. If someone resists harmony, that's their burden." I nearly choked on my mashed potatoes, but I didn't have to rebut her. The comments section did it for me. Walter is a legend. This HOA is a damn cult. I swear if they touch that man's barn again, we ride at dawn. Where do I buy a Get Off My Lawn t-shirt? Lex messaged me that night. You're a meme now. Great. I didn't ask for this fight, but now the whole country was watching, and Karen Hopewell was about to find out what happens when a quiet farmer goes viral. If you'd asked me a month ago whether I'd be spending my mornings reviewing legal briefs with a woman who drinks black coffee like it's holy water and swears louder than my diesel tractor, I'd have laughed in your face. But there I was, sitting across from Ellen Grant, my attorney, in a back office behind her modest law firm wedged between a vape shop and a failed Pilates studio in downtown Maple Hollow. Ellen was a bulldog in a denim blazer, late 40s, sharp tongue, and a personal vendetta against abusive bureaucracy. She'd taken my case the second she heard the word forged boundary line, said it reminded her of a battle she lost 10 years ago to a HOA in Knoxville. "Not again," she muttered. Not this time. She was good. Damn good. In just a week, she drafted a comprehensive motion accusing Cedar Ridge HOA of trespass, harassment, attempted land fraud, and illegal enforcement of non-binding covenants. She collected video evidence, gathered witness statements, and had already scheduled a deposition with good old Ted Sloan, our very much retired civil engineer. We were moving fast. Too fast, apparently. Because that Friday night, someone broke into her office. Not with a crowbar, not through a smashed window, no alarms, no kicked-in locks, just entered. Quiet, surgical, like they had a key. Ellen called me at 6 in the morning, her voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. They didn't take the computers, she said, didn't touch the money box. But guess what's gone? Let me guess, I said, pacing my porch. My file. Your entire case binder and the external hard drive with the surveillance footage from your barn and front gate. Also, some notarized copies from the land registry. All gone. Everything else untouched. I stopped cold. You sure it wasn't just moved? They left the drawer open, Walter. They wanted me to know they were here. She filed a report with the sheriff's department, but let's be honest. No fingerprints, no damage, no forced entry. It was going to be labeled suspicious activity and probably forgotten unless we handed them a smoking gun with a HOA logo etched on the barrel. To her credit, Ellen didn't flinch. I'm not pulling out, she said, but we need to get paranoid, real paranoid. She had her entire office scanned for bugs, started using a Faraday bag for her phone, switched to off-site storage. Hired a guy named Bobby who looked like he'd once been on a no-fly list to sit outside her door at night. This wasn't legal pressure anymore. This was intimidation. I went back through everything, every paper, every email, every call. And that's when I remembered something Lex had shown me. A press release from Halston Development, the corporate puppet masters behind Cedar Ridge. Buried deep in the language, past the buzzwords and real estate fluff, was a line about enhanced regional cooperation with compliance consultants for streamlined parcel standardization. Translation, they had people on the inside, the county clerk, the zoning office, maybe even someone at the recorder's office. How else could that map have made it through review with Ted Sloan's ghost signature? Lex didn't take it well. She'd been filming a new breakdown video when I told her about the break-in. She stared into the camera and said, "You know it's real when the gloves come off and the files go missing." The clip hit a nerve. Comments flooded in. They broke into the lawyer's office. Time to lawyer up the damn nation. This HOA thinks it's the CIA. Get this woman a guard dog and a flamethrower. Protect Ellen at all costs. She started getting offers from private cybersecurity firms to digitize and archive everything related to my case. Turns out HOA corruption brings out some interesting allies: prepper types, anti-government folks, retired attorneys, real estate watchdogs. Lex called it the unholy alliance of the internet. Meanwhile, Ellen filed a second motion, obstruction of justice, citing the targeted theft of legal evidence. She attached the police report, photos of the empty drawer, and testimony from her assistant, who swore she'd seen a man in a Cedar Ridge jacket hanging around the parking lot the day before. The judge didn't throw it out, which meant we had our first real win. But it didn't stop there. Lex, fueled by righteous fury and Red Bull, dug deeper. She tracked down a whistleblower from inside the Cedar Ridge HOA, a young guy named Brett, ex-enforcement officer, who left last year under quiet circumstances. After a few messages and a promise not to show his face on camera, he told us this. Karen had access to a master key system issued for inspection and community integration purposes. The same kind of key that worked on select commercial properties in town, including shared access buildings like legal offices, clinics, and even an old post office the HOA briefly leased during their expansion. Brett also said that Karen kept a private file drawer labeled Acquisition Pipeline. Inside were names, parcel numbers, and notes like soft target, push harder, and wait for lien. My name was on that list. So was Raymond Trujillo's. Ellen's hands were shaking when she read Brett's affidavit. "This isn't petty HOA crap anymore," she said. "This is racketeering dressed up in suburban beige. We sent everything to the district attorney's office." Lex posted a new video with the title, "Breaking, HO linked to illegal land grab operation, evidence of break-in, insider key use." It hit 5 million views in 24 hours. Karen's smiling face was suddenly a lot less charming. The more we uncovered, the more paranoid I got, but not scared. I'd seen what fear looked like in men. Tight jaws, wandering eyes, too polite by half. That wasn't me. They thought I was just an old farmer. They didn't realize I was the last man in this county still holding a loaded shotgun and a paper map from 1981. I was sitting on the porch whittling a busted fence post down into kindling when my phone buzzed with a message from Ellen. Just 3 words. "He's flipping, urgent." 2 hours later, I found myself in the back booth of a diner that smelled like grease, old coffee, and small-town secrets. Across from me sat Josh Carvel, late 30s, soft around the edges, with a nervous energy that came off like a wet fuse. He was one of the HOA's enforcement officers. I recognized him from the raid. He was the guy Tank had cornered near my barn. He looked less confident without a badge stitched to his jacket and 4 SUVs behind him. Ellen sat beside me, silent, watching. Josh fidgeted with his hands like they owed him money. "I can't sleep," he muttered. "I didn't sign up for this." "Start talking," Ellen said, "and make it count." Josh rubbed his temples. "Karen, she's not running the HOA. Not really. The decisions, the expansions, the pressure, it all comes from Halston Development. She's just the one cashing the checks." I leaned forward, slow. "You're saying they're paying her directly?" He nodded. "Bonuses, trips, consulting payments. They've got her set up for a property in a gated community down in Georgia. Once this is all done, she keeps Cedar Ridge growing, keeps landowners scared. They reward her. Simple math." "Why flip now?" I asked. Josh's hand stilled. "'Cause I saw my name on the list too. The scapegoat list. If anything went sideways, I was going to be the one they threw to the wolves. I've got a kid, man. I'm not going down with her." He handed Ellen a thumb drive. Documents, emails, even an internal HOA presentation titled Soft Conversion Strategy, Phase 2. It read like something out of a cold corporate takeover manual. Language like behavioral fatigue, pressure through citation layering, and increased penalty cycles designed to push non-compliant landowners into sale. My name came up 3 times. Josh had also kept screenshots of bank transfers, Karen's name tied to Halston Shell's subsidiaries. One payment memo read, "Outreach Performance Bonus." I leaned back, cold fury crawling up my spine. "They wanted me to break," I said. "Just give in." Josh nodded. "You weren't the first, but you're the first to fight this hard." Ellen handed him an affidavit to sign. "You're not protected unless this is on paper." He signed it. Right there, between a laminated pie menu and a sugar shaker. That night, Ellen filed a motion to freeze all HOA financial activity, citing probable cause of fraud, racketeering, and misuse of community funds. The next morning, a judge agreed. HOA accounts were locked pending investigation. You'd think that would slow them down. It didn't. By noon, 2 members of the HOA board resigned. One moved out of state overnight. The other went live on Facebook, rambling about secrets and lies before his internet mysteriously cut out. Lex, ever the bloodhound, tracked down a leaked audio recording, a board meeting from 4 months earlier. Karen could be heard saying, "If Hale doesn't bend, we burn him out. If we can't pressure him through fines, we isolate the parcel, block utility access, and let Halston handle the buyout." That clip made it into her latest video. She titled it, "Culture of Control, Secret HOA Audio Reveals Targeted Tactics." It got 10 million views in under 48 hours. Suddenly, it wasn't just internet people who cared. Local radio stations, regional news. A podcaster out of Nashville. Even a congressman's office reached out on background for details. The storm was growing faster than even Lex expected. And that's when the real turn happened. The district attorney's office issued a subpoena for Karen Hopewell's personal accounts. Turns out, she hadn't just been sloppy, she'd been arrogant. She hadn't even tried to hide the money. The paper trail was so clear you could paint it on a barn. But it got better, or worse, depending how you looked at it. An anonymous tipster, probably another HOA insider, leaked a document titled Acquisition Timeline, Red Cedar Phase 3. On that timeline, my farm. Scheduled for targeted purchase negotiation by Q4. They weren't even pretending anymore. This was planned, coordinated, a slow-moving land heist with Karen as the front and Halston as the hand in the glove. I sat on my porch that night, shotgun across my lap, dogs at my feet, and thought about everything. About the men who thought rural meant weak. About the woman who thought community meant control. About the developer who thought land was just a number on a spreadsheet. They didn't understand something simple. I didn't own this farm the way people own stocks or condos. I inherited it like a spine. And when they came for it, they picked the wrong damn vertebra to break. The courthouse in Red Cedar wasn't built for spectacle. Beige walls, flickering fluorescent lights. A vending machine that's been broken since the Clinton administration. But that morning, it felt like the damn Supreme Court. The parking lot overflowed with media vans, protesters, and more people in I Stand With Hale shirts than I ever thought I'd see outside a tractor pull. Ellen looked sharp in a navy suit that made her look like the last lawyer you'd want to lie to. I wore my cleanest jeans, boots polished, and a button-up shirt that didn't have holes from barbed wire. Lex filmed our walk into the building like it was a red carpet premiere. I could barely hear myself think over the chants from the crowd. Hands off Hale's land. No more HOAs. Karen, pack your bags. Inside the courtroom, Karen Hopewell sat at the defense table, lips pursed so tight you'd think someone superglued them shut. Her lawyer, a slick corporate type with hair too perfect for someone defending fraud, shuffled papers like they were going to rearrange the facts. He tried to smile at the cameras. Karen didn't. The judge, Han. Myra Gillian had the face of a woman who'd raised 5 boys, divorced 3 husbands, and now had zero tolerance for bullshit. She called the court to order, glanced down at the stack of motions and evidence, and said, "We're going to move fast and burn bright, folks." Ellen started strong. She presented the timeline, the unauthorized HOA raid on my land, the falsified jurisdictional map, the fake engineer signature, the attempted break-in of the barn, the break-in at her law office. Then came the thumb drive from Josh Carvel, emails, payment records, and internal HOA strategy slides. One of them literally said, "Saturate with violations, break resistance in Comic Sans." I swear the judge audibly groaned. Then Brett's affidavit was entered, followed by a video deposition from Ted Sloan himself, filmed in his backyard while feeding chickens and calling Karen a manic clipboard tyrant. Jury loved that one. Then came the kicker. Lex stood up from the gallery and handed Ellen a freshly printed exhibit, a certified transcript from the Halston Development Board meeting obtained via a whistleblower inside the firm. It showed clear discussion of using HOA leverage to manipulate private landholders into prearranged sales. My name was mentioned 3 times. They even joked about how rural folks won't know what hit them. Karen's lawyer objected. That transcript is unverified, Your Honor. Ellen didn't blink. We have 2 notarized affidavits confirming its authenticity and chain of custody. Also, it's been submitted to the district attorney for review in an active criminal investigation. Judge Gillian raised an eyebrow. Objection overruled. Next. Karen sat there, eyes fixed ahead, face pale. She hadn't said a word the entire time. Then it was her turn. Her lawyer tried the sympathy play, claimed she was just following procedure, that the map was an internal error, and that emotions have clearly escalated this beyond a civil matter. Ellen cut in during cross-examination. "Miss Hopewell, did you accept any payments from Halston Development Group?" Karen shifted in her seat. "Not personally." "Let's clarify that. Did you receive deposits, gifts, or consulting payments into any account bearing your name or a trust affiliated with you?" She looked to her lawyer. He didn't stop her. "Yes," she said finally. "But those were performance bonuses." "For what performance exactly?" Silence. Ellen delivered the coup de grace. "Did that performance involve falsifying property boundaries, orchestrating illegal citations, or breaking into a lawyer's office to steal evidence?" Karen snapped. "I don't know what my staff did. I didn't tell anyone to break into anything." You could hear a pin drop. Judge Jillian stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you. That will be quite sufficient." The prosecution rested. The jury was dismissed to deliberate. It took them 90 minutes. They came back with a list of verdicts: guilty of criminal trespass, guilty of document forgery, guilty of conspiracy to defraud, guilty of obstruction of justice, guilty of malicious harassment. When the judge read the sentence, the air went still. Miss Karen Hopewell is hereby sentenced to 6 years in state prison with eligibility for parole after 3. 4 officers of Cedar Ridge HOA are sentenced to 18 months probation and ordered to pay restitution. All HOA accounts are to be seized and the association dissolved under emergency administrative order. Control of all shared properties will revert to temporary county management. Lex's camera was rolling the moment the bailiff cuffed Karen and led her from the courtroom. Her expression wasn't smug anymore, just stunned, like someone who played God with zoning laws and finally got audited by the universe. "I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just stood up, adjusted my collar, and walked out with Ellen and Lex by my side. Outside, the crowd erupted, but inside me, just peace. Cold and clean. The kind that comes when you don't just win, you survive." 3 weeks after the trial, my mailbox stopped spitting out threats. No more manila envelopes with HOA logos. No more fake citations tucked under my truck's wipers. No more polite letters from county zoning with suspicious timing. Just the usual junk: tractor part catalogs, 2 coupons for deer feed, and 1 handwritten thank you note from a woman in Oklahoma. Said she'd watched all of Lex's videos and stood up to her own HOA using my case as precedent. Said they backed off when she brought a copy of the court ruling to a board meeting and asked, "You want to end up like Karen?" I pinned that one above my workbench. Cedar Ridge Preserve, once a polished little HOA kingdom of matching shutters and Stepford landscaping, was now under emergency management by the county. The gates were stuck open. The enforcement decals had been peeled off their little white SUVs. Karen's house was up for auction. Lex offered to live stream it. I declined. I didn't need a victory dance. I had a field to work. We fixed up the barn door they tried to force open, repainted the old tractor shed, welded the gate, added a chain, and just for good measure, put up a brand new sign in bold red letters: "Private property. Enter only if you're friendly or furry." And right underneath it, "Hale Farm, private since 1981. The dogs loved it. Tank laid under it like he was guarding the Constitution. Midnight dragged over an old boot and chewed it like a trophy. Every once in a while, a local would drive by, slow, and honk once in salute. Lex blew past one day in her hatchback and yelled from the window, "I made you a t-shirt." She handed me a box. Inside were 20 shirts, all sizes, with a picture of Tank and Midnight on the front, and the phrase, "Trespassers will be politely." Escorted by security. We sold out in 3 days. I put the money into repairs and a new camera system, 14 angles, motion-activated night vision. Ellen laughed when I told her, "You're turning into a prepper." "No," I said. "I'm just not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt anymore." Raymond Trujillo came by with a bottle of bourbon and an apology for not speaking up sooner. Said his new lawyer was using my court case to reopen his own. Said Halston tried to settle under the table. Said he told them to shove it. Good man. Ellen? She's now getting calls from across the state. People with similar horror stories asking if she's the lady who helped the farmer wreck the HOA mafia. She had to hire 2 new paralegals. Josh moved away. Witness protection light. Got a job at a hardware store in Kentucky. Last I heard, he was coaching Little League And Karen, 6 years behind bars. Maybe out in 3 if she behaves. I doubt it. Some people are addicted to control the way others are addicted to sugar or fame. She'll be organizing prison bunk rotations within a month. I still get letters, dozens a week. Some thank me. Some ask for advice. Some just send pictures of their own dogs guarding their land with proud grins and handwritten notes, inspired by Hale. I write back when I can. Short letters, honest ones. I don't tell them it gets easy. I tell them it gets worth it. One Sunday afternoon, I stood out by the fence, watching the wind roll across the south field, and it hit me. This wasn't just about land. It was about the line. The invisible one between what's yours and what someone else thinks they can take. They tried to erase that line with fines, maps, and fear. We redrew it with truth, teeth, and stubbornness. And it held. It damn well held.